How's it growing? This morning, the garden is nice and perky and beautiful. I've got a few things that are producing so well right now. It's the peak of tomato season. Atomic grape. Amy with Be Green with Amy had me on her live YouTube show, and I took questions from her and then took questions from her live viewers. And then I explained a little project that I've been working on for the past year, and especially lately. And it's the reason why I haven't had time to put out a whole lot of content on the channel. But I think you'll like what this is all about. It's a film project, and I'll put the link in the description down below for the trailer of this film that's going to be released in just a matter of a couple weeks.
All of those treatments where the genetically engineered bacterium had been present were dead.
Let's get right to it.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Be Green with Amy. I'm Amy. Back in 2012, I adopted a whole food plant-based lifestyle, and I've maintained my weight loss and still have fantastic health. And I love to interview people who either have adopted this lifestyle or make it easier for those who do. And I'm really glad you're here too, because you're voting today. So remember, whenever you click like or subscribe or type in a comment or just say hi, or you could even say, be strong, be well, and be green. Anything in there is in those comment boxes. That's what's going to be helpful to get the word out for this lifestyle. So we are going to be able to have you vote on the internet. And we're going to be having a special guest today. We're going to be taking your questions for him. So just keep typing them in all throughout the broadcast. And towards the end, we're going to bring up those questions. And so now I would like to introduce my very special guest. David Stack began Stack's Urban Harvest with a mission to inspire and educate new gardeners to grow their own food using organic methods, especially in South Florida, where it's many challenges, but much of the advice that David gives applies to all gardeners, regardless of their location. And so please help me give a warm welcome to David Stack. Welcome, David.
Hi, Amy. Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, I'm so glad that you're here. We kind of met on the internet, kind of in a chat kind of thing, because I was looking for a moringa tree seed. Right. And you were so kind that you sent it to me. And not only that, but I had questions about it and you answered them. And it was just so very nice to have that happen. And so then I learned more about you, because it seems like you have a wonderful YouTube channel. And then you also are doing a lot of other different things as well. So how did you get started with this gardening part of your life?
Growing up in Southern California, it was just something I enjoyed doing, and my father was really into gardening, and my brother and I had nothing in common. While he was rebuilding engines, I was potting flowers. My dad built a greenhouse, and I took over the greenhouse. It became mine. I couldn't wait to get home from high school so I can be in the garden, and they talked me into doing track, and I went. My first day of track, I was so miserable. I quit, and I was like, why would I do this? Because I could be home in the greenhouse and be in the garden instead of this. So it's just something I love to do. And when I moved to Florida, however, it was just the first couple of years of trying to garden were a failure. And I was like, why? It's not like I'm new to gardening. Why isn't it working for me? And I had to learn a whole new set of rules to deal with our poor soil and a lot of different challenges we have, the humidity.
Right. So I think it's great, because we who watch your channel and communicate with you, we have the benefit of your experience in different areas of the states to see how different gardens react to the weather and the different kinds of plants. And yes, there's for we have a lot of people that are watching in other areas of the world, but for those that are living in the southern hemisphere, their gardens are going to be a whole different kind of story compared to those in the northern hemisphere. Yeah, so I'm really glad that you're here. You give a lot of great advice. Now, how long have you been in South Florida?
I moved here. I moved to Tampa first in '98, down here to 2000 in 2000. Around 2010 is when I got back into gardening. So I kind of shelved that part of my life for a little while and rediscovered my love of gardening. When I say gardening, for me, gardening to grow food. And here we have tomato season, and these are some of my first tomatoes from the garden. This is Golden King of Siberia, and this is Black Vernissage. And I've got a Black Beauty down here. I've got a lot more that's gonna be ready to harvest soon. This is Python. It's a Python snake bean, which it's part of the gourd family, and it's crunchy, delicious. Really good. Very tasty.
Now, how does that, wait a minute, you have to tell me, how does that grow? Is that, you said it's part of the gourd family, so it kind of grows not underground.
These love to grow up my moringa trees, and you just see these snakes flowing from the trees. And before I broke this up or cut it up, it really looks like a snake. If you go through my videos, you'll see a thumbnail where you see these snakes with me in my cowboy hat, and that's what this is. If you let it get too mature, it's a little bit too fibrous, but when you pick it young enough, it's nice and tender.
Yeah, so you're eating it raw.
Oh yeah, it's really good.
Wow. Well, you said under your moringa tree, and I had just said that I have one because of your pod that you sent to me. So now you got me thinking. I need some snakes growing underneath.
I'll have to send you some seeds.
A lot of our audience, we have audience that are into gardening, and then we have audience that are into plant-based lifestyle. And I think are you incorporating some of that plant-based lifestyle into your life?
Oh, absolutely. So when I found out a few years ago that a nephew of mine had cancer, a very rare form of cancer that can be just very cruel to children, and he passed away. But during that time, when my brother, he's the oldest of 4 siblings. Since he's not internet savvy, he asked me to do some research help him with research on that. My best source was actually a coworker who she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so she told me about the acid versus alkaline diet, that you want to put more alkaline foods, most vegetables. Well, actually, I think all vegetables are alkaline. And then blueberries are one of the very few things that, there's a lot of health benefits, but they're acidic, and that's okay to have some acid in your diet. But as we know, sugar is very acidic and can be, if you have too much of just about anything, it can be unhealthy. But to help put more of alkaline into my diet, I started green smoothies. Now this isn't green because it's called black pusa acida carrot. And so it turned it kind of purple, dark purple.
Yeah.
But it's delicious. I have a mixture of fruits and when I have fruit from the property, I call it fruit from the farm. Then I'll incorporate that. But right now I'm buying store-bought frozen berries and putting that in there. And then so a mixture of fruits, vegetables, leafy greens. These are some of my edible perennials, beautiful landscape perennials.
They almost look like house plants.
I know. These are not houseplants. I brought these inside for the show today. This is something that your HOA, they're not going to complain about this. It looks like a beautiful landscape plant, but it's also delicious. And this is...
What is that? What is it called, David?
This is called South Sea Salad Tree. And then this is
Is it like a tree? Like it's woody like a tree?
It gets a little woody down here, but it's mostly, it's not like hardwood. It only gets about 9 to 11 feet tall if it's in the right conditions, the right environment. And this is a sister of the same plant. It gets just as big, just a little more decorative with the leaves. And it's just beautiful and, you know, it tastes good. So yeah, these are some of my favorite edible perennials that look good in the landscaping. This is Katuk. Yeah.
Katuk.
Yeah. This is a variegated version of Katuk, and the leaves taste like peanuts.
So variegated, if I think I remember, variegated, does it kind of mean that it's not a solid color? Is that what?
Right. Right, so it's not there's a solid green version and there's a variegated. So you got a mixture of whites in there.
Yeah. I think I have the solid one. Do you think that there's a difference in the taste or just by the looks alone is what?
No, I think it's just in the looks.
What's fun about that Katuk plant is that when it's more mature and you would break off a branch, you can kind of just grab the stem and then just kind of zip.
Oh yeah.
The leaves just kind of come off.
Yeah.
And then you have this handful of leaves.
Yeah, it's
just so eat.
Yeah, it's so easy to add to the green smoothies too. So speaking of variegated, this is a variegated version of Cuban oregano, which is, you know, good to use to flavor meats and or make a tea with it. It's medicinal. It smells like oregano.
I have the non-variegated Cuban oregano, and I've just used it raw, where I chop it up very finely and sprinkle it on salads. And wow, it's very powerful. You don't need much of it. And unfortunately, it's like one of my best plants. I'm ignoring it, and it's growing prolifically.
Yeah.
And I can't keep up with. I mean, what would you do with? I mean, you hate to waste it. So what would you recommend doing with it besides putting it in a salad or a smoothie? Anything else that?
Sure.
Dry it or.
Sure, you could dry it. You know, when I have excess, I feel the same way. I hate to waste it, but then I have the compost for that too. If I have an excess of anything, put it in the compost. It's not wasting. It's going to have another life and another form to provide nutrients for other plants.
Right. Now, when you say compost, do you have worms in there, or it's just?
Oh no.
Just compost.
Well, someday I'll get into to worm composting, but right now I have 3 tumblers. On my channel, I plan to do a series on composting. There's so much that I could talk about about composting.
Well, that's great. I mean, there's just so many wonderful things that you can grow and not have to worry about, you know, that they can kind of almost grow like weeds. And I'm glad that you put, I mean, that's even another topic, just HOA plants that you can put in your landscaping and not have to worry about your HOA not permitting you to have those plants.
Sure. And then this is a cranberry hibiscus, and this is one of the very best tasting leaves. It's when I give a garden tour and I let people taste this, I just love to watch their expression, their surprise. They don't expect the burst of flavor. And it's the highlight for me of the garden tour. And this one's just getting ready to flower, and their flowers are so beautiful.
And you can eat the leaves raw.
Oh yeah.
And then now most people who, especially those that don't grow it, they might be more familiar with the hibiscus tea. So how is that the same kind of plant that you would get the tea?
Now there's a number of edible hibiscus, and actually these are also considered edible hibiscus, but I'm not sure the details and how they work that, because this is actually related to okra. So I'm just telling you what I've read.
Right, because it's just so
Yeah.
many variations and things
Right.
to learn about.
But I'm pretty certain the hibiscus tea is not made from this. It
The
has,
cranberry hibiscus, it's another.
yeah. There's probably there's some other close relatives to this. There's one that has more decorative leaves. I actually have it outside.
So you mentioned that it's going to be flowering. Are the flowers edible as well?
Oh yeah. In fact, these flowers, to make tea from these, the day after it flowers is the best time to pluck it, collect the expired buds, and make a tea out of it.
So would you dry it, or you would just throw it in a?
Just throw it in the water, hot water, and steep it for a few minutes.
I actually have one of those as well, and I just for somebody had said that I could just, as it grew, that I could trim it back and then just stick the cuttings directly into the ground.
Yes.
That just blew me away too.
Yeah. Actually, just about, I think everything I have here is the same way. These I started from cuttings. Yeah, everything I have here. This is sisu spinach, and so it doesn't have much of a taste to it, but it's nutritious, and at least it doesn't have a bitter taste. Right? It's
Yes.
something nutritious to add to your salads and smoothies, and
And that's another thing that grows best in this climate.
yeah, that's a good point. This is why I love, these are some of my best friends right here, because they can take the summer heat here, and that's a great thing. And they're virtually pest free, and so that's another great thing. Easy to grow. I'm surprised I didn't bring longevity spinach in here. The longevity spinach is one of my favorites to grow.
Now with the longevity spinach, you just can only eat the leaves off of it? You don't eat the stem part or anything, right?
You probably could. I just never have, and
Yeah.
I've never never even thought about that. But yeah, and the stem is pretty tender, so I would think you could. So I do a mixture of a lot of different things when I make my green smoothies. And the green smoothie is homegrown. I did a video on how I make my green smoothies recently, and it's my favorite way to get the greens from the garden into my diet. So I always make sure I have a good supply of the smoothie.
I agree. I start my mornings off, or my first meal. It's a big green smoothie, and it has lots of vegetables and berries, and then I get my chia and flaxseed in, and my ginger and turmeric, just all the things that I think that are really important to have, so that this way, if I'm doing errands or running around, whatever I'm doing, and if I don't get to eat perfectly, I know that at least I started off my day with the things that my body needs, and I don't have to worry too much if I don't get everything in the rest of the day.
Right, and herbs. I forgot to mention herbs. That's the third thing I always add to the green smoothie. So I mean, there's so much nutrition in the parsley that I'm growing, and and even some of the perennial herbs that I'm growing. So,
Right, and people overlook herbs as a green. They're greens.
and very medicinal. Go to cola. It's growing like a weed out there right now. If you have insomnia, it's known to. I'm not going to make any claims. I'm going to just tell you. It's been said. It's been said to cure insomnia, and good to have in your diet. But just like a lot of things, like katuk, you don't want to have too much of it. I'll have it in my green smoothie, and then I'll take a break from it for about a week or so. You're not supposed to be on it constantly.
Yeah. So that's something that's friendly for Southwest Florida, which is really cool.
Oh yeah. It loves this time of year, I think, too, because all of a sudden it's just started growing like crazy. It's like a ground cover.
Now, can we grow rosemary?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I had a bush for a couple of years, and for some reason it just died. I had one I don't know if this one got nematodes, but I've had one that got nematodes, and that's another challenge we have in South Florida. I didn't know what nematodes were until I came here.
They sound just as scary as they are.
So I'm going to do a series. I actually started a series on nematodes, root knot nematodes. They're called root knot.
Great.
Yeah, root knot nematodes because they cause knots on your roots, and they're microscopic worms that cause havoc on your plants, especially tomatoes, your nightshade family plants, and a lot of brassicas. I've had them on brassica roots, and you see your plant isn't doing very well, and you don't really know what the problem is. They're more susceptible to pests and disease, and you think it's just that. No, and then you pull it up when it's dead, and you see all these knots on the roots. Bingo! That was what weakened your plant and made it less resistant to the pests and the diseases. And I want to make a point. Another thing that makes our garden plants less resistant is planting them in a season that they don't do well. Now these do well all year long. They're not gonna. They may not do quite as well in this time of year or in the winter. We're coming out of winter now, so they're doing better now. But when I'm talking about the more conventional veggies that we got growing out in the beds right now. If I tried to plant some of the brassicas, cabbage, if you try to grow that in the summer, it's not going to grow. It's not going to do well. It's going to get infested with bugs. And so knowing when to plant, what to plant is really a big key here in South Florida. Really anywhere, but especially here.
And yeah, there's just so many challenges that, on the one hand, things just really grow very well. And then on the other hand, you have those little challenges. But if you can figure out how to overcome them, which you are doing, and you're going to be helping a lot of other people that can do that as well. A lot of people complaining about the white flies.
Oh my goodness. Over at Tree Amigos, they sell this powder. It's called Mycotrol, and it's something you mix in with water, and it kills the whitefly. It'll get into the whitefly and use the whitefly as a host, and then those will develop spores to keep this Mycotrol going. And it kills some aphids. I haven't had luck with all aphids, but on my Barbados cherry tree, the aphids that get on that, for some reason, I've had good luck with controlling. And I gotta say about pest control, now it's Cynthia Schaefer who started our Facebook page that we're both on. South Florida Edible and Sustainable Gardening. So she started that page, but I gave Cynthia her own series on my YouTube channel.
My core philosophy really is, what would the forest do?
We bring two different approaches to organic gardening. Her approach is, and her motto is, what would the forest do? So she doesn't do any organic spraying. She says whatever needs to happen, let it happen. And sometimes I go about that way too, and I give it a try and just, the aphids are coming, and let's just hope the predators come, and they didn't. They didn't soon enough. And that year that I just let that happen with my cucumbers, sure enough, the ladybug larva came along, and the ladybug larva, it doesn't look anything like a ladybug. And you don't want to kill these things. They have a voracious appetite for eating aphids. So when those show up in your garden, you want them to be there. So I had these show up, but they showed up a little late, and my cucumber vines died. And you know what? It wasn't the end of the world. I pulled my vines up and planted something else. There's a time in the season for everything, right? Well, my cucumber season was over.
Seems like there should be like a poster of the insects and predators that you don't want to get rid of, because things can be pretty scary looking. So the first impulse would be to try to get rid of it, and it could very well be beneficial. So.
Sure. I've got a book on my shelf up there called Good Bug, Bad Bug. So it'll show you
to look it up.
Yeah, so it'll show you what the larva looks like, whether it's beneficial or not beneficial. What is the predator of the bad bug? So yeah, it's good to know those things.
There are people that they're all about ordering off of the internet, like they'll order ladybugs or praying mantis to try to combat things. Have you ever talked to people about that? Where do you stand?
So I've released quite a few ladybugs that I buy because when I can, I try to support local businesses, and here we have the Butterfly World here, and they have ladybugs for sale. So I buy ladybugs when I do. The problem with getting ladybugs is, they'll eat a little bit, and after, the next day when you go out there, you might find a few, but most of them have gone. It's like maybe 65-70% of them are gone. They flew away. And by 48 hours, you'll be lucky if you find any. So they don't stick around, but they'll help control the problem. So back to what I was saying with Cynthia Schaefer's version of organic pest control versus mine, and we're going to do a video about this sometime. I will use BT to control the worms that'll get on the brassicas and other things. I'll use neem oil. I use neem oil less than I used to, because using it does stress out the plants a bit. So if your plant is already stressed from the pests, yeah, do you want to stress it out even more? And you wonder why your plant just died. Well,
and then you have to worry about when to put it on, because people put it on in the middle of the day.
Oh, yeah. Right, exactly. That's a good point. Yeah, the neem oil.
Yeah, so and that's the challenge. I mean, we really there's a lot to appreciate for when we go to the farmers market and get organic produce. For what these farmers are doing to try to do their best not to use these herbicides and pesticides, and it can be really discouraging to a gardener to come across these kinds of challenges in a garden, and after all the planting and the expense and the hope. But I guess it's like you said, that there's just sometimes you just have to say, okay, this plant's not going to make it. And if you can plant maybe a variety of things in different locations, something's got to take, right?
Sure. I like that point that you made, and for new gardeners, I want to say, don't give up. Just a lot of people, they say, well, I just don't have a green thumb. It doesn't work for me. I don't have a green thumb. I give up. No, a little bit of knowledge can go a long way in putting food on your table. Just knowing some of the things that are so easy to grow that it takes very little care. I mean, I don't have to spray this vine or anything. I mean, when it finally did get aphids, but that's when it was almost a full year in its growth, and it was in the winter. And this was just a few weeks ago and now I've got a younger vine that is still thriving and it's starting to produce. And so this is, but my point is, if we're not in the cool season, when we can grow just about anything, get some perennials that take no care at all, or hardly any care at all. And these perennials are just pretty much carefree and don't have to worry about pests. I gave up on growing like zucchini. So I've had some success with growing zucchini, but I've learned that if it wasn't one thing, it was another thing, and it was always so much work for the amount of food that I was getting, and it was just frustrating. I decided, why bother putting in all that work when this stuff, it takes very little work.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I was given, a few years ago, I was given longevity spinach in a little plastic pot. And I had a very large pot in my backyard, and it had some flowering things in it. And I didn't have a place to plant this longevity spinach. So I just put the plastic pot with the little plant inside of the big pot. And I just kind of left it there because I never had longevity spinach, and it's only a few leaves on it. So I couldn't pick enough off of it to taste it. And I don't know, it seemed like a little, funny feel to it when I touched it. So I just kind of let it go. And, over like a year's time, the vine just kept growing longer and longer. I wasn't even trying to take care of it. And the roots were coming out the bottom of the pot, and then finally I just said, you know what, maybe there's something to this. And I learned about how you could just take this long vine and cut it up into smaller pieces and then just stick each cutting directly into the soil, no preparation at all. And now I have this huge bed of longevity spinach, which I can, harvest it and put in my green smoothie. Or sometimes I buy greens from the store as well. And I'm like, oh goodness, I ran out of greens. I don't have enough to make my salad or my smoothie or whatever, but I have that longevity spinach. So a lot of these things are really a great resource, especially if you're busy and you don't have time to really care for things in the garden.
Now, this is a sister to longevity spinach. This is Okinawa spinach, and it's very similar and very similar in taste, but it's got purple underneath the leaves.
Oh, that's very pretty.
Yeah, and it grows differently. It doesn't grow much as a ground cover. It's more of a bush. So I have something else here that I've been doing. I'm fairly new to fermenting, but I've learned that mustard greens are just incredible when they're fermented. And this is a giant Japanese red. It smells so good. And tastes delicious. I'm not really into spicy hot, and no one in my household is. So this takes a lot of the spice out, and it leaves a lot of good flavor in. So there's that. And then this is a daikon radish and some of the radish leaves. I normally ferment, and I recently got these fermenting lids.
Oh, and that's really interesting.
And the ferment weight.
Is that something that you would put like a vacuum?
Yeah.
Not a vacuum cleaner, but a vacuum.
Yeah. No, it has a pump where you can pump the air out of it. And I meant to bring that into the room so I can show you. But then I've got a fermenting weight. But you don't need a fermenting weight. For years I've done just a Ziploc bag, put some water in it, and use that as a fermenting weight. And I didn't have any special lid. I was just fermenting in something like this. So I only have 3 of these jars, so I'll ferment and then I'll add it to a jar like this. And I've used up all the jars in the house, and so my husband is like, it looks like a store. We got so much fermentation going on that's in the other refrigerator in the laundry room.
Tell you, I mean, it's important to have food on hand because you just never know when there could be an interruption of the supply chain, and knowing that you have your organically grown, nutritious, delicious foods that you've jarred up, and at any time if you just need something, it's there. That's fantastic.
And then star fruit. I mean, people, when they have an excess of something, you can freeze dry it like Cynthia Schaefer does, or I fermented this with some holiday spices and a little bit of experimentation with there's a little dill. I have some dill in there. So I experimented with adding a little bit of apple cider vinegar. And what I just recently learned is daikon radishes. Members of my household hate the smell of this once I fermented this, but it's not quite as bad as if I just put it in apple cider vinegar and put it directly in the refrigerator. So next time I probably won't even use this. I mean, I didn't really need this special lid because it tastes more like pickles than they do radishes.
And I think, isn't like the radish one of the easiest things to grow? Is that right?
Oh yeah, so easy.
That's a good newbie beginner thing to grow, a radish, would you say?
Oh yeah.
Wow, that's great. So we could do a whole show just on fermenting.
Right. And you want to get that beneficial bacteria, that's a microbiome, in such an important part of our health.
Well, it looks like we have some questions coming up, so I think we're going to start taking some of the questions. If you guys out there have a question, just type it in the comments, and even if you just want to say hi, we like that too. And let's see who's up here. Oh, and this one's from Mary Riley. Thanks for joining us. Do you use cloth-type shopping bags like Walmart to grow vegetables in? That's interesting.
I do have, if you're talking about grow bags, I do have some grow bags. I don't use them as much as I know a lot of other people do, just because they dry out so easily. You just got. I don't have a watering system ever since I discovered that I have nematodes, and that nematodes you can spread the contamination through a drip system, like the drip system that I had. And so I did away with that. And then when I read the book Square Foot Gardening by Mel Bartholomew, I do it by the book with my watering my garden. What he recommends is watering by hand. And I joke about how I carry around a bucket like Laura Ingalls, but because when you're hand watering, the benefit to that is you have more time to look at your plants and inspect, and you're looking for diseases and pests, and this needs to be trimmed up, or my tomatoes need to be pruned up. I don't mind spending a little more time watering by hand.
Angela W., what are the best things to use to amend soil?
Okay. So worm castings is always a good amendment. Worm castings, you want to have some beneficial fungi. Everyone loves a fungi, right? So mycorrhizal fungi is you can buy the spores. I think you can buy them around here. One of my favorite places to get something like that is Tree Amigos. I know they have it. Also the Urban Farming Institute, which is 1.5 miles away from our house. So I buy a lot of my amendments from there. Rock dust, either rock dust also, because it has a lot of minerals, or Tree Amigos, they sell a sea mineral, what do they call it? Sea crop. and I use that also. I use it as a foliar spray, and then during a season you'll also do a drench. So compost. That's that's my favorite amendment is my homegrown or homemade compost. Well, I did grow it too, a lot of it.
Yeah, I make a big salad every day and I make a big smoothie every day. So I always have cuttings that are left over from those things and into the compost they go. And it's amazing how nature just does her thing. And all of a sudden you've got really good stuff for the soil. And I personally have experience with the worm castings from Greenleaf Worm Farm. And I actually gave some to my son had a friend who was interested in gardening, and he had never heard of worm casting, so I said try this out, and he actually planted broccoli from seed and had two pots going, one with and one without the worm casting, and the one with the worm casting, everything else being equal, it was not just larger, but it was actually a deeper green. And they were both planted at the same time. It was just absolutely amazing. So I imagine all those things together are really great. But even, just those worm castings are just fantastic.
Oh, yeah. It's great. So, yeah, that was a really good question. Thank you.
Jamie R., what are the easiest edibles to plant and care for in Southwest Florida? So I think you covered some of them. Are there any others that you would add to that list?
I would say at the top of my list is probably longevity spinach. It's just so easy to start. These are so easy to grow. This grows like a weed. So moringa is another one of my favorites and so nutritious. It's a dynamic mineral accumulator. So the roots collect the minerals in the ground and they bring it up into the leaves and make it available to us. And because of that dynamic, it's also good to compost. So I cut a lot of it up and put it in the compost, and then that ends up feeding the rest of my garden.
Yeah, that's great. So you have organic compost feeding your organic garden.
Yeah, so it's not just compost, it's mineral rich compost. And I mentioned the rock dust, the mineral, rock dust. So azomite is what I'll put like a scoop into each compost tumbler. It's not something that's available to plants right away because the microbes have to do their thing with it. And the microbes make it available to the plants.
Yep, it's just kind of chemistry and biology and all kinds of things going on.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's just amazing. Nature is just fascinating.
Okay, Ray D. Hi, Ray. Thanks for tuning in. Which seeds are best to start indoors? I know a lot of people are thinking about starting seeds about now.
So, it actually July is when I do that. I'll have some seeds in here under grow lights, and in the laundry room I'll have more grow lights on the windowsill. And that's when I do my seed starting indoors for my fall and winter garden. And so just about everything that I'm growing out there, I mean, there are some things like carrots, some things that are just easier to just direct seed in the garden. But I like to get a jump on the cool season. So, last year I was really behind because I had a back injury and just some other things going on, so I got a late start, and that's why I'm just now getting my tomatoes harvested from the garden. But so there's so many of them that can be started indoors. The tomato plants, you can do that indoors. Get a jump on the cool season.
Okay, jump on the cool season. Okay. See if we have anything else. Oh, T says, thanks. What do you show visitors during your garden tour? You were talking earlier that you ended on the high note with the cranberry hibiscus. So you must have a really wonderful garden. What do you do in the tour? What can we see?
I mentioned my back injury and how it was so bad that I could hardly walk, much less get out to the garden. So I had to kind of like let things go and do Cynthia Schaefer's method. So when I started on a rabbit trail. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah. So what do you recommend to grow? What do you show visitors during your garden tour?
I did a garden tour. This was October or November. So you can see that video. I show a couple of things that happened that I was kind of surprised to see that, yeah, aphids took over on this one plant, but then there were the ladybug larvae and things like that. So depending on the time of year, right now I would be showing off my garden beds. It really changes during the time of year. So in the summertime, because of the nematodes, I pull everything out of the beds. I have 3 4x8 beds. During the summer, there's not much to see on my garden beds because I cover it with plastic and I solarize the beds to kill the nematodes. Yes, it kills everything, but then put fresh compost in there, worm castings, get the microbes going again. And the other microbes will regenerate. The nematodes will not. So in the summertime, I can show you my fruit trees, some of the fruit trees, like my mango tree that I grafted another variety to it, and I want to graft a third variety to it. So
yeah, I've heard about people finding certain trees that were resistant to nematodes, and then they were grafting other trees to those trees.
I have an egg.
My mind.
I've had an eggplant tree that was about 7 or 8 feet tall, and I had it for 5 years. It died last year, but I had these ping pong eggplants hanging down, not all year long. It wouldn't produce all year long. It would take a break for maybe a few months, and then it would start producing again. And that was grafted onto a wild cousin called Torvum, Solanum torvum, and it kind of has eggplant looking leaves.
Yeah, that's like being a surgeon.
It is. It's surgery.
We have another question. Mary Riley, do you have a natural weed killer? Yeah, we're all about getting away from those chemicals.
Yeah, we don't like Roundup. I use Roundup. I remember when I switched from Roundup to an off-brand. It was like an Ace Hardware, their own off-brand, and I was using that, and then I realized this has glyphosate in it too, the same key ingredient that Roundup has. And it's cancer-causing glyphosate that's in a lot of our food. I mean, about 90% of people that they've done the urine tests and found glyphosate in their urine. So this is why you want to eat organic as much as possible, and grow your own that is not contaminated with glyphosate.
I think Mary wanted to know what you use. Do you have something that you recommend?
Oh yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm on a rabbit trail again. So I love this question. So it's really simple. What I use is mostly vinegar and
white vinegar.
Yeah, white distilled, just the cheapest you can find, white vinegar, and then I'll add about tablespoon in a gallon. Not even, well, the mixture that I use is in a smaller than a gallon, but it would be about the equivalent of a tablespoon of like a dish soap. You want to use a biodegradable dish soap. So I use a Dr. Bonner's. So use something like that that's biodegradable. And some Epsom salt. A lot of people will add sometimes I'll use actual salt in it, but that can be harmful to the soil. And so if it's going to be on the weeds that come up in pavers, that's fine, but you don't want to damage the soil that's nearby other plants that you're growing.
Oh, I'm glad you talked about that, because I heard people talk about using salt and then also using just dish soap, and you clarified that maybe the Dr. Bonners or some other kind of natural type of soap would be good. That's good to know.
Yeah.
We have another question. Let's see. What's your favorite? Oh, this is State Gardener. What's your favorite peppers for hot and medium salsa?
I am the wrong person to ask that because
That's right. You said you don't like spicy.
what you
Family? Anybody in your family?
no, my whole household, my mother-in-law lives with us, and no, we can't handle. So what other people consider mild is extremely hot for me.
Well, at least everybody's agreeing in the household, so that's good. So you have to make separate things for people. Stacy Dion, hi Stacy. What do you think of hydroponic gardening towers with regards to nutrients? I really want to get one with the light kit.
I'm not experienced in hydroponics, and hydroponics is not considered organic, but
Right.
I do have this. Let me turn this up here. I don't really have much growing in there now, but it is a really basic hydroponic system, and so basic that it's kind of short-term, short-lived. Probably if I did the whole nutrient thing, then things would probably grow longer.
Yeah, I mean, I've not used it because I thought that there was something about what do you do with the chemicals once you're done with them? Is that an environmental concern about like dumping out the chemicals afterwards?
Right, good question. I'm probably the wrong person to ask about that. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I wound up with a grow tower that you can do indoors, but it's not hydroponic. So I think that's all our questions. I don't think that we had any other questions. And you were coming out trying to talk about something with a film, and I interrupted you because I wanted to finish up one of our questions. So let's get back to that.
I was talking about glyphosate,
which we then eat.
This was another film project that I did for the Institute for Responsible Technology. In this graph that I animated, it showed that as the farm started using glyphosate more and more since the mid-90s.
Which we know as Roundup, but it's
yeah,
right?
Right, it's the key ingredient in Roundup and a lot of the weed killers, herbicides. It followed the same track almost identically, was the rise in cases of autism and heart disease, brain fog. I mean, just so many different things. But I really wanted to pitch from what I've been working on in the past year is a short documentary that you can view the trailer for this film that's going to be released probably the 1st of April.
Of 2021.
Of 2021. So just in a matter of weeks, it's expected to be released. It's called Don't Let the Gene Out of the Bottle.
Gene.
Yes, I have poured my heart and soul into this. It's a short film, short documentary, but the trailer is available. You can view it at protectnaturenow.com. Please take a look at it and share it too. It's something I can't. Oh, and in this film, a lot of people in the organic gardening and farming business, they know who Dr. Elaine Ingham is. I don't want to give too much away, so I'm being very careful here. Just watch the trailer, and
because I know there's a lot of us that are in the audience are kind of aware of the glyphosate and the problems that it poses and so forth. So I think that they'd all be very interested to see what you have to say about it. I said in the intro, I mean, we talked a lot about South Florida and so forth and the plants, but you have knowledge about other areas of the globe too, so you can be helpful to other people, not just people in the Southern Hemisphere, if they have gardening questions. And you offered that if anybody's question didn't get answered, that you would be happy to do that, and we'll link up for them so that they can connect with you and ask those questions also.
Yes, my email address,
Yes.
urbanharvest@gardner.com.
Right. I'm glad you said that. And was there anything else that you wanted to add?
I think that's about it. Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm so glad that our wonderful audience who are watching and listening are with us as well. I wanted to take this moment to thank somebody that's been engineering in the background that really makes us look so good, because she's been driving the plane while we get to watch the movie in first class, and that's Rebecca from PKA Styles, and she's been quietly in the background helping out, fielding the questions and doing all the engineering stuff so that we can enjoy our conversation together without too much worrying about that. But most of all, I want to thank you guys that are watching and listening. Without you, we wouldn't be doing this, obviously, but you are voting on the internet. So vote for this by watching it and liking it and sharing and subscribing and going over to David's channel, because that's how you tell YouTube and the internet that this is the thing you want to watch, and it'll come up more in other people's searches who aren't familiar with organic gardening or healthy eating, and they'll more likely see this kind of information come up in the feed if you just click like. I just wanted to thank you all again for joining us. Till we see you guys again, be strong, be well, and be green.